So I watched the PlayStation conference showcase. Okay, I watched the PlayStation showcase yesterday. Um, I'm a person who's been trashing PlayStation for about 2 years now. I'm basically been trashing all the consoles, so to speak, because I really don't like where gaming is. But personally, I don't have a PlayStation 5 to even really have a dog in this race. I've sold my PlayStation 5. If I was to give you my PSN ID, you would see the last time I played was in December, maybe January. After I beat God of War, I sold it. Um, and it's basically because I'm tired of the Sony formula. And this is a sentiment that I've heard from people who are trashing this conference, and it took me some time to figure out why we differ in our opinions of this showcase when we are so similar in the notions we have when it comes to criticizing PlayStation. I found it very weird, you know what I mean? Because I'm looking at this conference and I'm very happy about what I saw, and they not only do they did they not like this conference, which is one thing, but Sony very much addressed a lot of the issues we had or we shared with PlayStation, right? Shared about PlayStation, and nothing has changed. Their sentiments on PlayStation hasn't changed. Is it me? Because people have a short memory, I guess. But is it me that? But maybe a year ago, a year and a half ago, the internet got in an uproar, right, about PlayStation. They said you need more indies, you need smaller games, you need more creative games, things that depart from the Sony formula. Or you're always making movie games. You make movie games, right? And here we are with a showcase, a PlayStation conference that deferred from that, that departed from a lot of that gave you, what was the complaint? All you do is third person over the shoulder, single player, narrative driven. Same complaints I had, right? And now we're here, seeing a press conference that is presenting you things that depart from that formula. And you're still mad? I'm confused. And I'm confused because the same people who had a problem with that formula are mad at the press conference because there was no Wolverine. A game which we've already seen is pretty cinematic heavy. Cinematics heavy. That's all we've seen of the game, right? And this really shows that my opinion is almost objective. It's not subjective, but almost objective, because the people who are mad or dislike the conference and upset about it, or they the reasons for it don't make a whole lot of sense, and it lends to the idea that the outrage, the selective outrage of this conference against this showcase, comes more from lack of or an overabundance of console war ammunition. Let me prove this. People are uh, people are giving this a bad grade, a bad review, and the reasons they have for it don't really make much sense. If you listen to the reasons people have for this conference being bad, they say things like there was no Wolverine, right? Okay, so let's take it from both angles. People who don't like PlayStation, people who do like PlayStation. Let's start with people who do like PlayStation. So you don't know what Wolverine is, but because it wasn't there, you thought it was bad for the conference. Now, don't get me wrong. Um, Wolverine is a beloved character. That doesn't equate to being a great game. Tons of great characters didn't make great games, right? When it comes to intellectual properties of different entertainment mediums, right? And if we look at the history of Wolverine games, they haven't been world beaters. They haven't been game of the year material. For you to say that the lack of it ruins a conference. The reason why Wolverine not being there makes it or lends to the idea that the conference was bad is because it's a big name and you wanted a banger to talk about when you're doing a console war debate. Let's keep it real. Now let's take it from the other side. The people who don't like PlayStation, the people who bash PlayStation like myself, right? We've already seen from the little we've seen of Wolverine, it's probably going to be pretty cinematic. It's probably going to be third person, over the shoulder, never a drip, same thing we always talk about. Yet we're saying because, oh, well, even Wolverine wasn't there, we're using that as a talking point against PlayStation. Now that it's not there, shouldn't we say, well, at least there's not another formulaic PlayStation game at the conference? Shouldn't we say that? Same thing with, similarly with another game they use, Factions 2, Last of Us Factions 2. You're mad, the conference was bad because it wasn't there. Okay, alright. I anticipated Factions 2, not for the same reasons everybody else was. I anticipated Factions 2 because it's multiplayer. Sony multiplayer. Something that breaks from the formula. Right? Could have been big. A beloved franchise, a great franchise. Right? And okay, yes, it should have been there. But we don't even know what Factions 2 is to say that because it wasn't there, it made it a bad conference. The last time we saw Factions 2, while it was a really good multiplayer, if we take it based on that and we anticipate it for the future, it's not anything that is groundbreaking, to say the least. We can only judge this conference. Basically, I'm saying you can only judge this conference based on what they showed, not based on what they did not show. That doesn't make any sense. And listen, you can always anticipate a game, like if it's a Metroid Prime or whatever the case may be. But if Nintendo has a good conference without showing Metroid Prime, that doesn't make it a bad conference. So the complaints to me have been addressed. Sony gave you both. They gave you the type of games that they're good at, and they gave you more. They're starting to give you multiplayer, right? So I personally have looked into some of these games. and I'm gonna start with Fair Games. So, Fair Games, it's pretty much, from what I can see, it's a heist game. So now, initially, you think it's going to be, and it can still be this, that it's going to be round based. You start at the gate of some billionaire's mansion or whatever, fort, vault, whatever, and teams try to break into the vault with all these security booby traps in the way, and your team tries to get the prize, the money, while the other team tries, and you have a combat scenario in between. That by itself sounds pretty cool. But from the concept art, from the details of the game, it looks like more, right? So you have, from the concept art, it looks like there's a lot of some sort of open world, some sort of city, um, and the details actually talk about a social experience, right? Like Jade Raymond wants there to be a social experience where people can hang out. So you kind of have like a, I don't know, if I'm speculating, some kind of chat area, right? Maybe a Destiny type of area. Sounds cool. Then she says she wants something that is kind of like the remix culture that you see on, social media, remixing shoes. So there's going to be some sort of user generated content. You know what I'm saying? So, and the last point was she wanted to create long lasting new IP that can last generations. So there's something about this game that's going to be maybe user generated, maybe unpredictable, that's going to keep people coming back. That's not God of War, I get it. That's not Spider Man, I get it. But we're getting interesting new IP, right? Then you will have people crapping on the conference because there was a bunch of third party. There's always third party, but there's the problem is when there's third party, there's not a lot of uh, console ammunition. Personally, I like the creativity. Listen, you can make as many jokes as you want. I like that surfing game, Sword of the Sea. I loved Journey. Journey inspired Breath of the Wild. And let's get on that. Let's get to that point. So, you have Nintendo fans talking about how much inspiration, how much they call it rip-offs and copying that Sony's doing, because there's a couple games that look like Breath of the Wild. Excuse me. As a long-time huge fan of a game called Shadow of the Colossus, let's not talk about ripping off. Let's not talk about this. Breath of the Wild absolutely ripped off Shadow of the Colossus. From the stamina meter to the climbing to the I forgot what they were, but the temples that were in the sky from the last game, right? Floating in an adventure game or gliding is not new. Spyro did it 20 something years ago. Infamous did it before Breath of the Wild. Um, uh, Plenty of games have done it. Okay, you had a version of that in Shadow of the Colossus, so to speak, right? Tears of the Kingdom is a patchwork of games, right? Even the new Ascend feature. Guess which game had that before that? Returnal had a Sisyphean elevator that had you go through solid objects, right? The the uh, the the uh, the fusing of objects. You had that in Dark Cloud. You had that in Infamous 2. And we're talking about copying and ripping off other games. What about Mario Golf? That copied everybody's golf. The Super Rush one. The original Mario Golf copied uh, Hot Shots Golf, the initial one. Right? Mario Maker copied Little Big Planet. Nintendo Garage copied Dreams. Right? You have Nintendo copying the game recording feature. Why doesn't anybody ever bring this up when it comes to Nintendo? Why is Nintendo allowed to copy other people, but no one can copy Nintendo without somebody bringing it up? And that brings me to Phone Party. People are talking about the game is terrible. Why? If Splatoon, okay, let's say this: if Splatoon is good, and you love Splatoon, and Foam Party is a ripoff of Splatoon, it's a copy of Splatoon. Why is Foam Party bad? Or Foam Stars, sorry. Why is Foam Stars bad? And it has its own twist to the formula. It has, these companions that create these vehicles for you to move with. Right? You can decorate your companions. You can decorate yourself. I mean, your avatar, your character. There's enough there to say that it's a twist, a change on the formula. But automatically the game is bad because Nintendo did it. But Nintendo can see somebody do something first, take from it, and nobody has a problem for it. There was a Nintendo game called GT Advance, right? And they had some console versions of it. Blatantly stole from Gran Turismo. Blatantly copied Gran Turismo. The game is called GT itself. Obviously, in the name, it stole from Gran Turismo. Nintendo exclusive. No one cared. Why is Nintendo allowed to copy PlayStation and others? I can go through the list. No one has a problem with it. But if you copy Nintendo, everybody has a problem with it. And it shows that there's a predisposition that gamers have and journalists have, and they judge the whole gaming industry based off that. Plenty of stuff the Switch did, the PS Vita did, the PS1 was a home console you took on the go before. In the year 2000, you could put a screen on that thing. You could take it with you. The PS Vita, you can convert from TV, from handheld to TV. So, obviously, I can almost see objectively the reaction to this conference, to this showcase, is about uh, console wars, from the obvious troll to the most professional uh, journalist. Obviously, right? And I have to say something about it because I'm finally starting to see the gaming industry, or at least PlayStation, go in a direction I want them to go in with some creativity. If I told you some of the games that I like from this showcase, you would probably laugh. Because I like the way it's designed. It may look silly, but I like the way it's designed. I like drumroll. I like Cat Quest. I like Cat Quest. They look good. You know, there's a couple games. Towers of Agassia, whatever that game is called. Um, of course, I like Grand Blue Fantasy Relinked. A couple of these games look good. I'm sorry. Teardown looks good. Um, Crossfire looks good. Um, and we have more to come next year. I think they just wanted to show what was coming this year. Close, it was close enough. That's why you got some CG. The conference wasn't perfect, but to call it the worst conference ever. Anyway, I'm gonna leave you guys right there. I did want to talk about the Q Link, but the Project Q, whatever, it's trash. And I give the conference a 7.5. And I'm gonna leave you guys right there, man. I know I do a video every decade, but when I see people interrupting the industry going in a direction I think is great, I have to speak on it. All right, peace.